Yo, 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 yo. Peace, everybody. Once again, this is your brother Shakim. Amen. I kept right back at you once again. Man, today I want to talk about the last couple of days. I really haven't had a time, I haven't had a chance to really sit back and dialogue with the family since being in the protest and the riots and things of that nature. It's been really interesting. I got a lot of real interesting thoughts to share with you. I got a lot of ideas, and it's just been a lot. And I really do appreciate a lot of the love and support that the community has actually been showing. One of the things that I learned from the last couple of days, especially with the riots, are that hold on, let me click on my comments. Hey, peace, peace, peace. One of the things that I learned during the last couple of days with the riots is that people's emotions right now are just flying all over the place, and it seems as though there is no middle ground. Either you're on one side or you're the next. Peace, what's going on? Hey, if any of y'all want to jump in this live, just let me know. In Charleston, South Carolina, in this city, we've always been known for peaceful protests. We've always been a city that anytime we've experienced situations where it's emotionally charged, we've always been the city that's prided ourselves on being such a very cordial, loving, warm, and caring place. We've always prided ourselves in being somewhere where if there was some sort of tension, that we can iron it out and smooth it out by warm gestures of kindness and being peaceful. That has been the legacy of this particular city. Saturday, it went all down south. Keep in mind, we've had the Walter Scott situation where the former officer Slager was shot in the back while fleeing from police. He was shot 8 times in the back, and the officer planted a gun on his lifeless body. That was something that really had the people outraged. That was one of the driving, motivating factors behind Black Lives Matter Charleston. Even though Black Lives Matter Charleston started, right after the Mike Brown incident, that issue with Walter Scott really catapulted us into the national spotlight. We went through a real tumultuous time with Walter Scott. As y'all know, my brother, our brother, Muhyiddin Dabaha, he led Black Lives Matter Charleston. We stood right by each other. We started protests, demonstrations. Civil disobedience was something that we civil disobedience was something that we really found to be near and dear to us. I'm one that believes that there is time for civil disobedience, right? Martin Luther King talked about civil disobedience. A lot of our, how can I get a hat like that? I don't know. That's a good question. So a lot of people actually utilize civil disobedience to get their particular messages heard. Civil disobedience is a measure, an outlet that is a lot of times used by people when they feel as though their messages aren't being heard. So in order to amplify that voice, you a lot of times need to inconvenience people or do something that is going to allow people to recognize what your cause is. That's kind of the goal behind civil disobedience. Civil disobedience isn't an end all. Hold on, let me look. Okay, I got you, Crystal. So civil disobedience isn't a end all, method. It's not even a goal. The goal normally is, outside of civil disobedience. Anytime people engage in civil disobedience, if you go look at the history of Martin Luther King, you go look at the history of the civil rights movement, anytime there was civil disobedience, there always was a negotiator, right? You always had the agitation part, which was the civil disobedience. Hey, Sonny, come join on me, Sonny. What you doing? Sonny, what are you doing? I want Sonny to join on if you can. Let me know if you can join on, Sonny. Let me send you a link in Twitter. I want to talk about this. Normally, whenever you have hold on, let me Sonny, I'm gonna try to see if I can send you a link. If you can come on. I want to talk to Sonny. Sonny, I listened to a very interesting clip. I just sent you the link, Sonny. I listened to something very interesting that Sonny had to say the other day, and she was just talking about how all of this could have actually been stopped. a lot of this is just built up frustration from years and years and years of people feeling like they've been ignored. It's a frustration that's been built up from people trying to articulate themselves, and even with the Colin Kaepernick incident, a lot of times people felt that instead of that issue being addressed, there was a lot of deflection. Oh well, he's not black, or oh well, what about black on black crime? So in all honesty, when you start looking at the reason why we're here and we start to have these interesting discussions, it comes to, I mean, even with the interviews I was doing with the protesters and the looters that night, one of the things that they would always say is, we're tired, we're tired, we're tired, right? And a lot of times the looters kind of they got like ulterior motives, but the people who peacefully protesting, you still got to listen to them. And a lot of the things that they were saying made total sense. When is it going to stop? When is it going to end? Why don't we have the ability to have oversight in our communities over the things that go on? These are logical questions. If we're living in a neighborhood where police have the ability to summon us and have power over us to oversee the day-to-day operations in the neighborhood, people feel as though the people, the community, should be able to have that same level of transparency that the police have in governing our communities. That is what a citizens review board actually is. And when you have that citizens review board, it allows there to be a lot of trust and transparency in the process, so people can actually understand what the procedures of the police department are. They can understand what policing looks like. They can understand, what a relationship between the community and the police should actually be. You can look at living, breathing examples of how across the country, they're working examples of how police chiefs have come into neighborhoods and assisted without having to use these broken windows operations, where it's just a sense of, let's lock them up, let's lock them up, let's lock them up, let's lock them up. So having these conversations is very important. A lot of the protesters feel like, not the looters, the protesters, because there's a difference between the two. Let's go ahead and get that together now. The protesters feel as though years and years and years have passed without us having these conversations. So now we're at the apex or the point to where you're seeing everything unfold. People are mad. People are rioting. All across the country, people are protesting. And even if you look at it right now, leadership is supposed to step in and say, let's have this conversation. One of the areas where I think Donald Trump is actually failing is that Donald Trump is not having these conversations. Whether you like him or not, still, if there was an attempt to sit down, okay, and woo-wee, and hey, all right. Yo, look who I got in the house. I got Sonny.
Hi.
I got Sonny in the house. And I got like 1,001 questions for you, Sonny. And I'm like a prosecutor. I'm like an interrogator. And I want to get into the abyss of your mind so that I can feel your frustration, right? Because when you put that clip, when you was in that clip that you posted, and I really listened to it, right? And I could just feel the passion and the rage, and it almost feels like I could feel the energy emitting from you. And you talked about how this could have all been avoided. Like, we didn't even have to get down this route. So one of the first questions that I have to ask you is, how could we have avoided this situation?
Well, first off, just say, like, about the rage in my voice, it's been a rough couple of weeks for me. Like, just looking at everything and being like, I knew this was going to happen. Like, I told you this was going to happen. Like, I laid everything out. I explained it. I gave you everything, and it still happened. And like, everybody tells me this, it's not your fault. It's not your responsibility. It's not. And I get all of that, but this didn't have to happen. Like, we could have moved ourselves towards a place where we were having these conversations honestly. So when something like this pops off, we can't be infiltrated. We can't be
Right.
torn apart. We can't be ripped asunder because we're already doing the work. But as long as the work never starts, then these situations are going to continue to happen until America is no longer America. You are at the point of, it's like literally now, save your country. Have these conversations and save your country. If you don't, we are going to lose America. And when it's over and when it's done and the Constitution holds no more weight and the Republic means nothing anymore, all of us are going to be asking like, how the hell did we get here? And that's going to be way, way too late to be asking that question at that point. So I would have said after Ferguson, I wish they would have listened. I've said since then, I wish they would have listened. I wish they would have listened. And nobody is listening. And even now, it seems like nobody is listening. They hear the protesters louder. I mean, the looters louder than the protesters. They hear the violence louder than the echoes and screams of our cries over years. Like everything we have said consistently is pushed to the back burner and ignored because of the bigger problem. And the protests and the looting and all of that. And I'm like, I want to be furious at it because I believe in ownership. I believe in the right to protect and defend yourself. I believe in, like, these are things that are so intrinsic to my core. But at what point, if these people are telling you you're not listening to me, you don't hear me, you're not comprehending what I'm trying to say, and I feel exactly like they do because I've tried having these conversations with you. I've tried dialoguing with you. I put my ego up to the side. I put my pride to the side. I put my level of education and understanding to the side to come down and try to reach a lot of people who weren't there yet. Like, at what point do I have the right to be tired? That you aren't listening, that you aren't activating, that you don't care as much about this country as I do. But yet, if the question was posed, it would be me that you would call unconservative. It would be me that you would call leftist or whatever, because I believe that you have to have this race conversation. You cannot run from it. You can't hide from it. You can't pretend it doesn't exist. You can't wish it away. You can't will it away. You can't colorblind it away. You can't stereotype it away. You can't talking point it away. You're going to have these tough discussions. And even now, I don't see the right willing to have these discussions, and I don't see the left willing to reform itself. So what the hell are you going to be left with?
Right. So, quick question. So, one of the questions that I've been really like fielding all day long, especially the last couple of days, people been like asking me, okay, what is Trump doing? Is Trump really trying to have this conversation? Is he running from the conversation? You know, why isn't it that he sat down with a lot of, leaders and said, listen, this is what we need to do, instead of basically saying, okay, calling governors weak and things like that? Do you think Trump is doing what he should be doing to help quell a lot of the attention?
I had Daryl Scott on my show on Saturday. He's real close with Trump. And I didn't ask him about Trump. I asked him about the talks with the Republican Party.
Okay.
So I was like, what are your talks with the Republican Party? Not the federal party. I mean, the federal arm of the party, but like the local, the state. Like, what are your interactions with these people? And it wasn't good. He got exactly what we all get when we try to actually work with these people. They don't want to hear us. They don't want us there. Matter of fact, they came up with a term for it. They called it a necessity, some kind of necessity, inconvenient necessity or something like that. And that's basically what we are, because they need a few black faces scattered around. But once we start asking for shit, once we start asking for an agenda, once we start asking for support, once we start asking for, a change in messaging, a reevaluation of what's coming out of the top, then you know what I'm saying, and we become more bothersome than we're worth. So they need a couple of black faces just around for necessity to kind of quell the cause of racism, but not to actually hear our voice and not to actually implement any change in the communities that we hold dear. And one of the things that pisses me off the most, you know what pisses me off the most?
Yeah,
is these black Republicans and conservatives that are running around and they're like, they moved out of our communities, or they never were a part of our communities in the first place. And they are like, well, I made it out. Okay, you did. You know, let's be cool with that. You did. And America is a wonderful place if you leave your neighborhood, if you leave your community, if you leave your family, if you leave your church, if you leave like what the hell? Why do we have to leave to get these things? So I'm happy that you are so comfortable separating yourself from black people, but what about us that don't want to do that? What about us that are very, very comfortable around our people? We don't want to move. We don't want to leave them. We don't want to take our intellect and our skill and our knowledge and the things that we had that could actually better our communities. We don't want to take those things and leave our community. We want to take those things and stay and become contributing members and help things to actually change. So feel comfortable in your ability to fucking walk away. But don't you dare look at us and try to judge us because we refuse to turn our backs on the very people that raised us into who we are. And it's really disheartening to see it happening. But at the same time, it needs to be said that there are a lot of us that don't abandon our communities. We don't walk away. We don't run. And we really want to have true, honest dialogue and offer a choice, a differing ideology to Black people on how we can solve a lot of these issues. But we just continuously get drowned out by those people and the people on the left. And then when we get in a situation like this, we get drowned out by riots. And I'm just like, at what point will they listen to us and just realize we want change? Like, we want real, tangible change. And for me, that's not even like, oh, let's talk about reparations. That's not even what I'm fucking talking about. I'm talking about structural systemic change. And the only way that you can do that is with local government on the ground. And the only way we can be an entrenched democratic machine on the ground is by having a bigger equal machine to help in that fight. And I believe that from the bottom of my heart.
Ooh, wow. Okay. So when you start talking about that systemic change, right? How does that look? What policies and procedures and things? If you were able to sit down to the table with lawmakers and the lawmakers were questioning you and they said, Sonny, okay, we hear you. I mean, we love how articulate you are. Your mind is just like wonderful. But what do you want? What do you think would be the first step or steps, plural, in making that change? What would be some of the things you laid on the table?
First and foremost, you need to have two parties. You need not necessarily two parties, but two competing ideologies. And right now, you only have one ideology. And if that ideology, in and of it by itself, is going to dominate and rule and govern completely. So you have to have a competing ideology, and you have to have a message and messengers to carry that ideology into the community. So before you start with policy, you have to make relationships with people. Like, you have to show them that you're going to show up. Like, I've never had a Republican come to my neighborhood. I've never, in my entirety of my freaking life, there's never been a Republican come to my neighborhood. And they'll say to us, well, Democrats only show up every 4 years. Well, there's a federal election every 4 years, and you only see them show up every 4 years. But in actualities, in our communities, they're there 24/7, 365 days a year, 366 and elite, because they govern. You know what I'm saying? They govern and they rule, absolutely. So if you think about everything that they have implemented, everything from the partnerships that they've made with these public sector unions. So now it's damn near impossible to fire a police officer because he's part of a public sector union. You can't fire a teacher because they're a part of a public sector union. You can't fire officials within local government because they are shielded. So we first need to look at all of these relationships that these different groups have made with government under government unionized contracts and start to unravel and untangle them so that the public servants are held to the same exact regard and standard of every other citizen. They should not be given any special status and all these extra protections that make them above and beyond what normal average citizens are. And then that way, as citizens, when we have problems with people we look at as public servants, those issues are able to be addressed instead of just thrown to the back burner or swept under the rug by these unions and the power that they wield. Everybody will admit, understand how much power they have. Everybody talks about the teacher union. Now they're starting to talk about police unions. Well, most of these unions have made relationships with these local governments. These local governments are the ones who they negotiate their contracts with. They are the ones that give them these protections. And we can go in and actually start to pull back a lot of those protections and put a lot of these public servants back on equal footing with the public. And I think that that will go a long way to being able to hold government accountable for a lot of the things that are going on in our community. And that's just at like a first level. Then you can go in and you can talk about, well, if we're not gonna offer a robust school choice system, and you're still gonna have public schools in place, what kind of reforms do we need to do inside those public schools to make them competitive with the private schools and the charter schools? You know what I'm saying? And I think the way it looks like now is that the public schools are just set up as rejection centers or indoctrination centers, or as we've learned through this pandemic, that they use them as daycares and they use them as food distribution centers. And it's really, really less about their education as it being a social safety net. You know how everybody, that's what the school system has become. They don't teach them civics. They don't teach them economics. They don't teach them entrepreneurship. They don't get them out and ready to compete with kids graduating out of China and India. And we are a global economy now. And you have our kids stuck learning some dumbass Common Core that doesn't even work. After 10 years, think about that. Entire fucking decade of our children in this experiment only to find out that this shit doesn't work. So it's like there are real things that we need to be focusing on. And that includes, again, you're not going to get these curriculums changed. You're not going to get the focus of them changed. You're not going to get the money allocated to where it needs to be. You're not going to get any of those things changed from the federal level. Those are going to be state level changes that have to happen at the state level. At the local, those are local level changes that need to be done at the local level. And that's only going to come when you have robust debate and conversation and you actually have a choice, which right now is not present on the ground. And I could keep going because you can.
Well, I want you to answer. I want you to address this question, right? So Michael said, but people are changing. He said, you aren't going to get rid of all the racists from any side, and you aren't going to get rid of dirty politicians. But I think you have personally seen the good Republicans and Democrats come out and help the community. So why encourage and justify the acts of violence against them? My mind is open, just trying to understand.
When have I didn't see no Republicans come and help my community. Like when did I see that? You say I saw that. I didn't see that. As a matter of fact, I have been going to Republicans for 10 years trying to get them to come to our communities. And for 10 years, Republicans have given me every reason, excuse why they cannot come to our communities. So we can keep pointing fingers at the Democrats and say what the Democrats did all day long. But if Republicans aren't going to show up and offer them a choice, if you aren't going to actually go there and fight with them and compete with on an ideological level with them, then what the hell are you doing but just being a bystander? And that's what I'm trying to tell the Republican Party. Here's the thing. They'll come to us and they'll say, well, Black people have voted for the Democratic Party for 60 years. I'm not 60 years old. I didn't do that. That wasn't me. So why the hell are you continuing to hold me accountable for something that the civil rights era did? That wasn't my fight. That wasn't my era. We're in a different era now. We're in a different fight now. I want to wage the fight of our time. But we keep getting held to what happened 60 years ago. And white people hate it when it happens to them because they don't want to be branded racist for something they had nothing to do with. Well, hell, we don't want to be branded like we can't be talked to. We can't be reasoned with. We can't have good discussions and debate because of something that fucking happened 60 years ago. So like both this whole paradigm of right and left, of red and blue, of like just this sickness of thought that you have to take your side and you have to stick there. And no matter what is said, you have to stick there. It's all bullshit and it's breaking us apart as a country. We have to be able to have discussions about what is right and what is wrong. And you can't tell me Republicans show up in my community because that's bullshit. You know what I'm saying? You can't. And you can't tell me they're willing to because I've asked them and they're not. So again, don't come to me like I am new to this or I am just playing and baiting and race. Like, oh no, I put in the work. I volunteered. I've given ideas. I've given thoughts. I've shown up. They don't reciprocate. So make that very clear. You're not going to get the Democratic Party to reform itself. And me and Shakim by ourselves, no matter how great we are, and brother, we fabulous. But no matter how great we are, we're not going to break a whole democratic machine by ourselves. It's just not going to happen. Think about all the power they have consolidated, how they have, like we as a Black community, and I'm talking about the community, people that live together, okay? Not everybody spread out everywhere. Those of us that actually live together in communities, right? We're under like 7 layers of democratic control. From city council to mayors to school boards to DAs to judges to like every notch on the board is a freaking Democrat. You know what I'm saying? If we're under all of that, me and you ourselves are supposed to go and dismantle that all by ourselves. That's not even fucking realistic. But that's what we get told when we say, come and help us bring a choice to our community. We're going to have to fight these big democratic political machines that have been entrenched in these areas. And we can't do it by our fucking selves. And
right. Okay. So now this leads me to this question, right? That everybody always asks about the Republican Party. As much as we hold on, so you pushing the Republican agenda. So matter of fact, all right. So I want you to answer this, right? Because a lot of times, people when they hear that you are that you're conservative. Hold on, I want you to answer this, right? Whenever people hear that you're conservative, they automatically think, okay, the normal talking points that Republicans are used to espousing and used to hearing, they automatically put that on you. They transplant it to you. So you got a brother like Brock who just said, so are you pushing the Republican agenda? Can you explain a little better to give him an understanding of what it is that you're pushing? Because he's like, well, you're talking about it.
I'm pushing Jay-Z's 444 agenda. I'm pushing Jay-Z's legacy agenda. Stop dying over a damn block that you don't own. Let's start buying back our shit. Let's have equity in our shit. Let's have ruling power in our schools. Let's have ruling power over how we navigate at a local level and the control that we have and the savvy we have about controlling our politics. Democrats aren't going anywhere. Okay, so the best thing that you can do is have 2 competing forces. And like I said, even if it's not Republicans, it needs to be another ideology. You know what I'm saying? And you need to have those 2 forces that are willing to compete with each other, that are willing to debate with each other. Maybe not every time I am going to be right, or maybe every time you're not going to be right, or maybe sometimes we both need to put our ideas on the table and there's a place in the middle that we can meet. But right now, there is no debate. There is no, and on top of that, there is no Republican agenda for Black America. You can tell me what the fuck it is, because I've been asking them that for 10 years now. there is no Republican agenda for Black America. So I can't be pushing a Republican agenda when there isn't one. And that's the point where we are at right now, is that we need to start setting an agenda for ourselves. And if we can't find a political party that is willing to push it, then ideologically, we must be willing to have these conversations amongst ourselves to get us to where we need to be.
Okay, wonderful. So, Sonny, I want you to. I'm gonna introduce you to James. I don't know if you was watching James and Elvin debate the other night. They kind of had a good debate, and they were talking about systemic racism, the police department, how we can kind of start having these discussions. James is a conservative. He has a lot of good points, right? I agree with a lot James says. We have our disagreements here and there every now and then, but that's who we are. Hey, it is what it is. So James had a good. He was basically talking about systemic racism. He said that, as America began to progress, and James, you can always correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Sonny's a conservative too. Wonderful young lady. Oh yeah,
by the way.
Okay, he knows who you are. So James was saying that, as time began to move on, systemic racism has moved itself out. And he said now it's not really a system issue. It's basically an individual issue, and how that individual looks or sees the no, he says it's a policing issue. So he says
you were right before. I see it as a people issue. I think systemic. Well, it just, like I said, like I told Elvin, everybody can define systemic their own way, but the way I define systemic is by the letter of the law. And I don't think we have that as a system as far as race goes. But I do think we'll always deal with it as far as on a people. As long as we have humans in place pulling the levers in those you're always going to deal with issues like that: racism, sexism, homophobia. We're always going to be contending with those things. But I don't think that means that the whole system is broken and we should throw it out.
Well, what is the system? What is our system?
Well, just the government as a whole, the American establishment.
Well, what is our system?
You mean the Democratic Republic or the Republic, the Constitutional Republic?
Right? That's our system. Our system is the Republic. So what does that mean? That the government closest to the people has the most power over the people.
Right.
Right? So if Black people are coming and saying there's systemic racism, where is that racism coming from?
The actual or the perceived, I guess. What do you mean?
If we have in a republic,
right?
The idea of the republic is that the government closest to the people has the most power.
Right.
Black people are saying that there is systemic racism, and our system is a republic where the government closest to the people has the most power. Where is that racism coming from?
The local governments.
Who runs the Black local governments?
I'm sorry?
Who runs the governments in Black communities?
That I guess I'm not prepared for that answer. I'm not sure what you mean.
Democrats run the politics in most Black areas.
Oh yeah.
They run the local politics. So if Black people are saying that there is systemic racism, and our system is based on local politics,
I see where you're going.
Local politics are run by Democrats. Why the hell are you defending Democrats?
Who is?
You are.
I'm defending Democrats?
By saying that there is no systemic racism, even though our system is a republic. Democrats run the local level. Black people are saying there is systemic racism. Democrats are there, Republicans are not.
But let me ask you this then: Are we having the same problem in Republican areas or just the Democratic areas? Because
there are some Republican areas I could talk about. Trust and believe.
Okay, but that's what I was going to say. If it's mainly or primarily the Democratic areas,
on the Black community, and there is no Black community with Republicans.
Right. Well, very little in here.
There is none. So, with that being said, if every single Black community is complaining about systemic racism, and the government closest to those people have the power, where is the racism coming from?
Well, I mean, I can tell you the Democrats are racist. They're homophobic too. I know
Point
that.
being, no, but the point being is every time you say systemic racism does not exist, you are letting those people who put those systems in place off the hook.
Oh,
So
you say
you
it's like
might not want
giving
to
them.
call it, you might not want to call it systemic racism. You might want to call it progressivism because that's what I think it is. But that is what they are complaining about. So
Right.
instead of saying it doesn't exist, if you actually break down and think about our system and how it works and what these people are saying, what they're saying is their local government is systemically against their prosperity. As a conservative, you would say, what has Democrats done for you? What the hell are Black people saying? They're saying the exact same thing. But conservatives and Republicans jump in and you want to fight because systemic racism is there and you don't want to talk about race. And so you let these Democrats off the hook for everything that they've done. So if we're complaining about schools, who run the schools? Democrats. So if we're saying that there is something intrinsically wrong with the schools, why are you defending Democrats? If we are saying that who made the deals with the police unions? The Democrats. So if we're saying that there's problems with the police, why are you protecting the Democrats? In every single one of these cases, Republicans and conservatives protect the Democrats more than anybody else ever could. Because we can't hold them accountable, because when we say things like systemic racism, you want to argue with us over what we're actually trying to say, which is our local governments are fucked up and they need to be reformed. That's what we're trying to say. And as
that way is a lot easier to understand.
That reformation doesn't need to happen. It's never going to happen.
Right.
So Tyler, did she just convince you that systemic racism exists?
She definitely introduced me to a new definition or interpretation of it. Yes, I'll say that.
Okay, so that's good. Okay, so man, I ain't never heard Tyler. Oh man, that's okay. well, that's a good thing, right? So I think. So what's your understanding on what she said? Give me your understanding on that.
Well, I mean, I get what she's saying. It's just a different definition. Like I said, I've always defined it as, I'm a paralegal. That's my background. It's the letter of the law. And so, like, I've always interpreted systemic as, if I can go find it in a book, like I said the other night, we don't have that, but that doesn't mean that there's not maybe a different system. And maybe I think that's the system that you're referring to. And maybe that was kind of naive on my part to only look at it one way before. But so I guess thanks for that.
Word. Shaka Shakur.
Sonny, I just come in to say hi to Sonny. Goddamn it, that's all I want.
Yes,
no,
sir.
I am telling you, like, I've been so stressed these last couple of weeks, and like, that's why I just kind of wanted to jump on and say hi to you guys and kind of just join a conversation a little bit. Like, these are real conversations. Like, we can have them without like splitting and breaking, and you know what I'm saying? Like, these are real things that we can talk about and real issues that need to be discussed that are going to change the way that Americans look at their country. And at the same time, it's a whole bunch of Republican-led cities that have some issues with the way that they treat their citizens as well. And those things are only going to be solved at the local level. But those things too are only going to start when we start reforming these parties, you know what I'm saying, that will political power, and we can't protect them and we can't defend them. We have to be willing to defend our principles, our values, and our country before any of these damn parties.
Ooh,
agreed.
That's what's up. So let's talk about some of the. Have there been any riots or anything in your area, Sonny?
No, I mean the closest one I would say, the big one to me would be DC. You know what I'm saying? But I'm far outside of it enough to not have it. And then I'm coupled in the middle with the riots that happened in Richmond, Virginia, which is my hometown. It breaks my freaking heart. But you know what I'm saying? They defaced the Robert E. Lee statue. I mean, it ain't like I'm gonna cry about it. I don't celebrate Democrats. But they terminated the statue in the middle of Richmond. I mean, they spray painted and put graffiti on it and everything. And I'm not going to cry about that at all, but not personally around me.
Right. So let me ask you a question. Whenever a lot of people are saying that the only places that are rioting are Democratic strongholds, the only place that they're uprising are Democratic strongholds that have Democratic mayors, cities that have been ruled for Democrats for so long. There's a narrative out there that speaks to this. How do each one of you feel about this narrative? Do you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts on it? Matter of fact, Tyler, you can start first. Let's hear you first.
I think the Democratic Party is masters of manipulation. That's how they've stayed in existence. That's how they survived the Civil War. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that the reason these things are happening primarily in Democratic zones is, well, I mean, first of all, I mean, look at our own city. If you want to fuck up a city and get it done on the low, it's going to help if you're in charge of the local government. You have the resources and the information, and you can keep shit quiet. I don't necessarily know if that has anything to do with the protests, but I don't know, because I'm torn when it comes to the things as far as saying it's in a major Democratic era or not, because I think that the protests are real. So I think people have this genuine emotion and this real issue that they want to talk about. So to say that it's just in Democratic areas almost takes away from that side of the argument, if you understand, if that makes sense. I don't know. That could just be mudslinging. There's so much mudslinging that happens now, it's hard to know what's real and what's mudslinging.
Okay, what you think, Shaka?
It works both ways. As far as, yes, of course, the more urban area is going to be ran by Democrats. But when you look downtown and you look at some of the high rises and things as such, you have districts, you have wards, you have just different sections, and some of them are Republican. So this ward can be ran by a Republican, this ward can be ran by a Democrat. But if you want to just go with Democratic mayor or Democratic governor, you got what Mark Rubio said. He spoke out, and it was the wrong speaking out, but he spoke out. He's a Republican, but that goes back to what Sunny said as far as I believe that was last week. She said that soon as Trump wins, the Republicans will show themselves. As far as day one after the election, they're going to take back their party, and you see that Mark Rubio had a chance to say, "Hey, Antifa and whoever you want to put on that, Black Lives Matter, whatever the case be, they doing this, they're agitating," but it was like, no, it's both parties, the left and the right, and it's like they're not being genuine. So everybody should be held accountable, Democrat and Republican, but we know black means Democrat, and that's what they roll with. So
what did Mark Rubio say? I'm lost. I didn't hear. What did he say?
Mark Rubio basically tried to save the left, save Antifa. He threw a what is it? A life jacket out to you got to realize the rhinos and the Democrats don't want to highlight Antifa. Antifa been around, like I said. I was in Ferguson. I seen Antifa. They just didn't have a name. They was just. I guess that was their audition. Audition was Ferguson. So a lot of people said I was racist over the last couple of days because I said we ran those white boys off because they were throwing rocks at the police. They were the ones trying to teach us how to make Molotov cocktails, and you see people burning from the Molotov cocktails because they don't know the proper way to do it or the proper way to throw it. And they're learning from Antifa. We in the hood. We don't know nothing about no Molotov cocktail. That's not unless you dealing with the mob or dealing in the 60s and stuff like that. We lost that. So I think it's both parties involved. Both parties need to put down their partisanship and actually focus on how and what solutions that we need to push forward. I'm tired of Democrats and Republicans doing the pointing the fingers. Republicans, white conservatives don't want to take the blame of Soros can only exist because of y'all. Everybody keeps saying George Soros, Antifa, George. They can only exist because the white community is insensitive and dismissive towards the black community. That's the let's call it for what it is. It's like you want to put the blame on something, but you don't want to sit back and say, hey, we tried. They did try peaceful protesting when Kaepernick took a knee. I'm not even a Cap supporter, but because I got my problem with Black Lives Matter, that a lot of people don't know how extreme it got with me and Darren and some other activists where they were attacking us. So I keep that off, my personal stuff. I keep that. I don't support that. Like I said, as far as that, but I supported, taking a stand against police brutality. So I can put my feelings aside and actually focus on what the aim was. So he didn't say not one word. He just took a knee. They attacked him. That's not the way to protest. Okay, so we can't protest by not saying nothing, and that was peaceful as fuck. Excuse my language, but that's the most peaceful thing you can do is not say nothing. That wasn't right. Okay, let's try to put politicians in. Politicians don't have some of them don't have our best interests. That didn't work. So it is okay. What do you do now? Okay, y'all took away the jobs. Y'all tore down the economy with the COVID. People that just start working. Because I know me and Shaquem, like I said, I know you deal with the community. I deal with the community. So we've been knowing each other for about 8 years. A lot of people that just got jobs under Trump got their jobs taken away or they got laid off where they're not coming back. So, okay, we finally got something. Y'all took it away. Boom. Now you have the killing on tape. They didn't want to arrest the murderer. It's a powder keg. So what the Republicans and conservatives and the Democrats been doing is a powder keg where one is pushing it, the other one pushes this way, they fill it up, and it's going to be a boom. This is not even the boom yet, but it's going to be a boom soon. And that's where we at.
Okay. So Tyler, I remember Tyler and I, we were having a discussion. He was talking about allyship, right? So Tyler is definitely, he's an advocate of the LBGT community.
Easy. Not so much the gay community. I'm not all about that
Okay.
alphabet soup shit.
So what's the difference? I don't show. What's the difference? What's the difference?
Okay, so for me, the gay community consists of gays, lesbians, and bisexuals. A lot of gay folks are going to come for me for saying that, but I'm not down with the whole 732 genders, 227 identifications and preferences, and I identify as a pink elephant that only has sex with bisexual squirrels. I can't get down with all that. So I support the lesbian, gay, and bisexual community, but I don't know about the LGBT, HIJK, LMNOP shit. That's no. But go ahead.
Okay.
I never heard nobody break it down like that. But salute to you.
Yeah, that was the first for me. Okay, so now that we all got that understanding, he was talking about allyship. Do you feel that the gay community and the black community share a certain allyship that is going to help us with pushing for, I would say, more civil rights legislation for both communities? Do you think that that's an allyship that is going to be beneficial in the future?
Is that for me?
Yes, sir. Well, everybody. I'll let you answer that. I'll let Sonny go after you.
I'll be completely honest with you. I think that the vision of the future that the gay community has for itself and the vision for the future that the black community has for itself are very different. And that's not to say that we can't live in peace or anything. That's an illusion that's been created by the Democratic Party that we are this big happy family. They tell us what we want to hear, tell the black community what they want to hear, and then that's why they can't move forward, because they're trying to bring all these different visions of the future together and it doesn't coalesce. I think that there are issues that we can all work together to improve as people. I don't know that necessarily because I'm black or I'm gay or somebody else is black that gives us like this superpower combination like fucking Captain Planet that helps us deal with issues. I think we're all people and we can all deal with issues as people. I hate breaking people down into groups and subsects, and I hate. We're all bleed red. We're all humans. We can all make babies with each other, so we're the same fucking species. Like it's stupid. It's labels and it does nothing to break. It breaks us down and we don't move forward doing anything that way. So yes, I think blacks and gays can work together, but no more so than blacks and whites and straights and lesbians. So that's fine.
What you think about that, Sonny?
I'm of the old adage, I don't go in your bedroom. So I'm of the, can we make money together? Can we change
Right.
government together? Can take the little one to soccer practice on Saturday because I got something else to do? Like that's what I got. Like what you do when you go home, you a grown ass fucking adult. I ain't got nothing to do with that. And I don't got no say in it. And nor am I going to build allyship off of what you do in your personal time.
Right, exactly.
Do you want to build? Do you want to grow? Can we invest? Can we work together to do something where all of us benefit from it? And I don't care what color you are. I don't
Yeah.
care who you sleep with. I don't care what God you pray to. I really don't. But can we build? Can we grow? Can we equally coexist? That's my question. Now, if you're telling me, like he said, if you're telling me I have to learn your 32 pronouns, then I don't want nothing to do with you. I don't have time or inclination to do that with you. You know what I'm saying? I just don't. So you're asking more of me than I can give to you.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna bow out of this relationship gracefully, and man, you don't need to work together. But if you don't want me concerned with what you do in your personal life, man, you'll get along just fine.
Yep.
What you say, Shaka? What you got?
I'm the type of person, like I said, I've reached over the aisle. My only gripe, with the LGBT community would be just me being active in my community. They try to make a lot of things about them.
Yep. They sure
That
do.
doesn't mean that I don't want to work with anybody, but
They sure do.
they can hijack, a movement. They can
Everything.
hijack,
Everything.
momentum. They can hijack it and make it theirs. But I'm the type of person where a lot of people hit me and they be like, "Oh, what you doing with this?" I'm like, "Alone, I don't know that somebody's gay unless they gonna tell me that they're gay." But I don't care. So you can keep whatever you. If you're not touching kids, all that other shit is not my business. Now, that's just how I stand. But it's if we working for a common goal, yes, I can work with you.
That's it.
Yeah, that's
All
all.
right. All right, so let me, James, and well, Tyler, I keep seeing James in there, but I don't know you as James. Okay, let me ask you this question. So, him and I were having this discussion a little while ago. I don't see how. I mean, and as a black person, this goes a lot of with conservatism with us. I don't see how you. It's kind of hard for me to see you as being a conservative and gay because conservatives don't historically accept that. They're very Christian, very,
I'm gonna run and
Bible.
give me a drink. I'll be right back.
Yeah, okay. Very Bible quoting, gun carrying. It just can't make that. It just, I can't wrap my mind around it. Explain that to me.
It's really easy. It's like I told you earlier. It doesn't for me and that's why I say I'm conservative and not Republican because I don't identify as a Republican. I have huge issues with their platform in a lot of ways. But
What are some of the issues you have? Not to stop you out, but what are some of the issues you have with their platform?
oh God, we'd be here all damn night. Um, I think I think they do put too much emphasis on oh God, everything. Let me pick one. I'll give you one. Immigration. Immigration. I think that Republicans have it wrong. At least today, under Trump, the mentality that's been put on immigration. My fiance is an immigrant, and I think that this whole idea of everybody that doesn't live within our borders being a bad guy or a threat, I think that's a terrible approach, and that is one of the sticking points I have with Trump. Is I do feel like he has kind of fed that narrative of anything that's other or unknown is dangerous or scary. I don't like that. What was the other question? The main question?
No, well, that was good. No, how do you actually fit into the world of conservatism?
Conservative. Oh, well, that just comes down to one thing that I really only disagree with people that identify as conservatives. I'm not Christian. I mean, and that's easy enough for me. It's like we were talking about the other night. There's certain people in our community that we talk to, and the conversation very quickly swoops onto Jesus. I just smile and nod. Yeah, but I mean, if I can get along with you on social issues and economic issues, and just tune out when you're talking about Jesus. It's a lot easier for me to identify as a conservative and disregard religion than it is to identify as a liberal and disregard my personal principles on every fucking thing.
But on the liberal side of the aisle, it seems as though they fight so much for things like, gay marriage
That's a show. That's all a show. That is a show. So let me tell you about gays and Democrats. I left the Democratic Party in 2014 after the midterm election. We got our collective asses handed to us, and I didn't understand how in progressive 2014 these straight white Christian Republicans had swooped in and made a lame duck out of the first black president. That made no sense to me. So I started paying a little bit more attention to conservatives. And that's actually, I never really became a Republican. I learned about the Libertarian Party. I left the Democrats and went to the Libertarians. But it got me wondering, why was I a Democrat this whole time when I didn't really identify with their platform outside of, for them, when I became a Democrat, it was just because I was gay. They liked gay people, so sure, vote for the Democrats. But after I realized that I didn't really see eye to eye on their platform, I wanted to know why I had become a Democrat in the first place. And that was because I was gay. So why are gay people Democrats? Well, I didn't understand that either. So you look back to gay people collectively came out of the closet in America in '69 with the 69 with the Stonewall riots. And then the Democrats didn't change their position on us until 2010. But the only time Democrats show up in gay history between '69 and 2010 is '94 and '96 with Bill Clinton, when they imposed the Defense of Marriage Act and the Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So the only time the Democrats show up in our history before 2010 is when they're trying to hold us back. It wasn't until 2010 when they realized these faggots weren't going anywhere. If they're going to be voting and contributing, they might as well be voting for us. The same way LBJ did black people. He said, if these blacks are going to be voting, they might as well be voting Democrat. So the Democrats have this system of fighting people until they realize those people are going to be viable, and then they swoop in and tell them whatever they need to hear to make them vote for them. That's my opinion.
I think one of the biggest, stupidest things Republicans and conservatives do is not court gay people that are not a part of the movement. All right. So, or just trying to find commonality with the people who want their issues addressed, but don't necessarily want to infiltrate everything. So one of the examples I will use is RuPaul, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of RuPaul. Mm-hmm. Okay. Me and my daughter, we watch Drag Race. It's her thing. She likes the makeup. She likes the costumes. She's an artistic person. To her, it's everything. I do what my daughter likes, so I can make sure I stay in tune with what she do and we having those conversations. So if you look at RuPaul and the way he set up Drag Race, everything affiliated with Drag Race is owned by someone in the LGBT community. Mm-hmm. Everything. So all of the prizes they give out, all of the makeup that they use, the wigs, the designers, everything that encompasses Drag Race is all by the people within the LGBT community. Mm-hmm. So they advertise for each other, they campaign with each other, they work with each other. They have figured out a model of capitalism that keeps their dollar rotating within their group.
Self-sustaining, yeah.
So they've learned something that we still can't fucking figure out. So I would much rather talk about the greatness of the design plan that they have and how they practice group economics to accomplish their goals rather than talking about their sexuality. Because to me, that idea
I like this woman.
is important, not who they sleep with or if they choose to put on dresses or whatever. That idea of being economically self-sufficient and being able to operate in your own sphere and not give a damn what anybody else says about you, because you own everything. You operate through everything. Everybody that you need is a friend of yours within your own movement. Why the hell can't we do that? So they've already figured out the formula of how to make their dollar rotate in their community. And I'm just saying we could take that model and make our dollar rotate in our community. And where that dollar overlaps, that's fine with me. I got no problem with it. You spending with me and I'm spending with you. We both good. You know what I'm saying? I don't care what your proclivity is. If you have gotten to a place where economic independence is your forefront, you believe in fair trade, you believe in competition, and you're willing to go out, put your reputation on the line, put your risk into it to create something fabulous that no one else has ever done before. That is something that conservatives should be cheering, because they're not asking you for shit. Matter of fact, everything that they need, they already have. And I'm like, what could be more fucking conservative than that? So if you look at just that model of it, and just the way that they've been able to come together, bring their dollars together, keep it rotating within their community, that's definitely something I would much rather talk about than their sexuality.
Okay, all right, James. This is a controversial question, James. I got James under the gun. Now, James Tyler, he has been one of the most, I would say, leaders of former because he left, but he was the leader of South Carolina. you know somebody's gonna bring it up. You already know. He was the former leader. He was the former leader of the South Carolina Secessionist Party. So the question is, Mr. Bessinger, you were, Mr. Confederate flag 2 seconds ago.
It didn't start that way. It didn't start that way.
Okay,
it started as a secessionist movement.
Okay, so please explain your transition, because I gotta explain mine all the time. People are always like, Trump, how do you conservative, Black Power, Trump, what in the world? So talk to your story is very wow, explain your transition. A lot of people to this day are so, especially after the letter you wrote the other day, and it went all over the news, and people are still lost, and a lot of people admire you, but let's talk about how you went from the South Carolina Secessionist Party to causing trouble in the city with the Confederate flag to now all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but you transition into where you're at now.
Well, I mean, my beliefs, my positions on all the things I'm talking about now were the same then as they are now. I just wasn't also I'm just not advocating for the preservation of Confederate heritage anymore. Like, you got to understand, the flaggings, the going out and putting the flags out you got to remember, I got involved in activism and in politics as a Democratic Socialist in 2009. Like, that was my introduction to politics on the very far left into the House. And you know how Democrats play. Like, they're obnoxious. That's how they protest. That's how they get their point across. They want everybody to clutch their pearls. And how could you do that? And all I did was take their tactics and slap a Confederate flag on it, and suddenly they all pissed their fucking pants. I started the Secessionist Party as a political ideology in 2014, before the flag issue ever happened. But there was no ground. Nobody thought about secession back then. Still, nobody thinks about it. But I'm a small government type of guy. I thought secession was a good idea, and it had nothing to do with the flag. When the flag issue happened, everybody found out about the organization because of the name secession, and they started talking to the organization. And I was like, well, to hell with it. If this is how I'm going to get people's attention, so I rode the wave until like the beginning of 2016, and then by then it was just a full-blown fucking heritage organization. There's nothing I could do about it, so I just stuck with it. So that kind of whole thing happened by accident, but I'm also not the kind of person that's gonna. I like to save face, so rather than say, you know what, this isn't really what I signed up for, I just wrote it out until the wheels fell off.
Okay, so there's a question. Somebody said you, in one of your last interviews with the Post and Courier, you said that a lot of the people in the Secessionist Party were racist. They said
no, I didn't say that. The overall Confederate heritage community, and that's including organizations like mine, the Sons of Confederate Veterans, the Daughters of the Confederacy, like hundreds of thousands of people in these organizations. That was the community I was talking about. The Secessionist Party I started to notice that the general tone in our forums, we had websites where members could talk back and forth, exchange paperwork, ideas, send out applications and stuff, but they could also just have conversations. And the conversations in these forums started to take a very uncomfortable turn for me. Like, I started to see the word fags pop up every now and then. And then things like, I saw the word spook one time, and like that kind of shit started to become more and more prevalent. And rather than give that the opportunity to, I was the chairman of the board, and rather than give that the opportunity to grow to the point where the people that had that voice could have taken me out of power and taken over this organization and done whatever they wanted with it, I killed it. I choked it in the cream. And then that lawyer, Roy Wiley, tried to claim that he shut the organization down, but that was total bullshit. Total bullshit. He said that he had it shut down, but the settlement for that lawsuit, which my attorney wrote, agreed to the closing down the organization because we'd already done it beforehand. Everything was already shut down before that happened. We shut down in January. The lawsuit didn't settle until April or May. But, Democrats.
Are you under gag order about the lawsuit or no?
No.
Okay, so you want to explain, because a lot of people are a lot of people only saw
that lawsuit was a political stunt by Thomas Dixon and Roy Wiley and his wife. That's what that lawsuit was. That was them taking advantage of a person because they wanted you. I know what no coincidence that shortly after I was served with the lawsuit, like the day or two after, there's this big press conference, and there's Roy Wiley and Thomas Dixon, who was running for mayor of North Charleston, and his wife, Kelsey, who's running for probate judge of Charleston County, have this big press conference where they're, suing the South Carolina Secessionist Party for pictures of kids at the Battery. And it was such a show. And when the lawsuit first started, my attorney and Roy Wiley were going back and forth about, a settlement. Like, let's get this over with. What's it going to take? And he's coming back. My attorney told me he was coming back with these figures for like $10,000, $15,000. I'm like, no, we'll take it to court. I'm not going to give him $10,000.
Okay, so let me ask you this: How did they come up with that you owe the NAACP $1,000? Like,
so
where the
here's
hell
what happened? The election came. They started the lawsuit in April or March. The election came in November. Roy Wiley's wife got her ass handed to her. Thomas Dixon got his ass handed to him. And then suddenly they only wanted $1,000 for the NAACP. The woman that they sued for didn't get a penny. They went from $10,000 for the family to $1,000 for the NAACP once they lost. That was a sham. It was all a show. It was all a show.
Right. So, Sonny, let me ask you a question. What do you think about Confederate heritage and conservatism or the Republican Party? Do you feel that there's a place for that, or that needs to be separate? Like, what's your take on that?
Can I answer this by telling a story real quick?
Go ahead, of course.
Okay, so fresh when I first started, this is like the first event that I go to, the very first thing that I ever did, like participation wise in politics. I got invited to a Black conference, a Black Republican conference in Washington, D.C. The keynote speaker at the time was Ken Cuccinelli. So now he's in the White House and he's handling, I forgot what he does there, but Ken is now in the White House. Okay. So he was the keynote speaker at this event. So I go to this event. At the timing of this is when Bob McDonnell was governor of Virginia. And he announced that Virginia would be celebrating Confederate History Month. Now, mind you, this is the last time a Republican has held state office in Virginia was with Bob McDonnell. And this is the shit that he did that made Virginia turn into a blue state, like almost, basically a blue state. So Bob McDonnell decides we are going to celebrate Confederate History Month here in Virginia. You know how fucking insulting that is? That is so fucking insulting, right? So we go to this convention. Ken Cuccinelli is the speaker, and he is setting up to run for mayor of Virginia, right? So this was like when Obamacare had just first passed, and he had put out the lawsuit against Obamacare coming from the state of Virginia. So he was like the Republican rock star at the time. And it was supposed to be like this big fucking thing that he came to speak to us lowly Black Republicans. And so he comes in, he does his whole spiel, he does all his talking points, and then he opens it up for questions. And of course, everybody's, kissing his ass. And I'm like, this is enough. Let me raise my hand. First time I ever did this, so I was like petrified, but I was like, this can't go any further. So I raised my hand. I said, I'm from Virginia, your home state. You know what I'm saying? I'm one of your constituencies. I said, so Republican Governor Bob McDonnell is celebrating Confederate History Month, right? Are they planning to celebrate Republican history next? Because there's a whole bunch of HBCUs in Virginia. There's people like Maggie Walker that's in Virginia. There's a whole bunch of Republican history in Virginia. Are you going to celebrate that? And he looks at me and goes, I really don't. I say, okay, well, let me clarify. There is a Robert Lee statue sitting in the middle of Virginia, of Richmond, Virginia. There's a Robert Lee statue sitting in the middle of Richmond, Virginia. Right around the corner from that is Maggie Walker's house. Maggie Walker was the first Black woman to charter a bank in America. The first Black woman to charter a bank in America. And she was a Republican. She ran for office as a Republican. Her house is around the corner from the Robert Lee statue. So if you're going to be celebrating the Democrats in our city, why can't you celebrate the Republicans that were right around the corner? Mind you, Cuccinelli is a Republican. Mm-hmm. He says to me, I'm not from Richmond. I'm from Northern Virginia, so I don't really know the history of the state. That was his response to me. And I'm like, well, let me tell you a little bit about the history, all right? So you're planning on running for governor, correct? He was like, yes. I was like, the Governor's School of Virginia is named the Maggie Walker Governor School. It's literally named after the Black Republican. Well, I don't know anything. So by then, the Black Republicans that invited me, they're standing over in the corner because I'm grilling his ass, and they're giving me like the death chop. Like, stop, don't do this anymore. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, he should be able to answer these questions. He couldn't answer any of them. They ushered him right out of the room. So about a year later, I was at an event. He showed up. As soon as he saw me, he looked at me and he knew exactly who I was. And I said, so do you have an answer for my question yet? And he said, no, I haven't looked into that yet. I was like, oh, okay, all right. So then I got invited to a meeting where he was speaking at, but I didn't know he was speaking at it. So when I get there, he's there and I'm sitting there and I was with my husband. And my husband was like, should we just leave? And I was like, no, I'd like to ask him a question. My husband was like, no, we should just leave. We should really just leave. And I ripped into him again. And he looks at me with the deadest face possible and says, you're really never going to let this go, are you? And I'm like, dude, this is the third fucking time you've seen me. Nothing has told you to actually research this shit yet. Nothing has told you to actually have an answer for my fucking question. Nothing tells you that you might want to learn Virginia history. You might want to learn Republican history. I know it's no purpose to asking you to learn Black history, but you should be learning the history of your party, the history of your state. But they don't. You know what I'm saying? So in all of that, that tells you exactly where they are. It's not even that they don't know our history. They don't know the Republican Party's history. And they don't know most of these state history. So when it comes down to them supporting issues like the Confederate flag, I always laugh at it because I can imagine if you actually sat down and had a conversation with these people, you would realize how limited their range and education and knowledge on these subjects actually is. They're not as smart as they think they are, as smart as they claim they are, or as smart as they would have you to believe when they're walking around talking about superiority. And this is why I don't play white supremacy games. Because in order to play white supremacy games, I have to think that I am inferior. And I have talked to enough of them to understand that is not the case. So I'm not going to walk around calling you superior in any way, shape, form, or fashion, when if I were to ask you simple questions about the party that you cap for, you can answer those questions. I'm not going to give you superiority when I know your level of just comprehension is so far below mine. And that's how a lot of these white Republicans and conservatives are. They think they know a lot more than they actually know. And if you were to actually start questioning them and pushing them on these subjects, like I have done time and time again, which is why they don't talk to me no more, you will start to realize they're not as smart as they pretend that they are.
Okay, so Shaka, do you think Confederate history is a part of conservatism, or a part of the Republican Party? Do you how because a lot of people see it as one, because if you say a Confederate flag, they don't think about the Democratic Party, they think about the Republican Party, because a lot of the old Southern, the what they call redneck culture, they fly the Confederate flag. Do you see that as a part of being, the conservative history, Republican history?
Being a conservative I don't correlate conservative with Republican.
Right.
So that's
I think none of us do. Like, which one of us actually conflates the two?
Yeah, I don't like, but a lot of people, Sonny, a lot of people think we say conservative that means Republican. I'm like, no, that's not what it means. But I have a problem. Like I said, the Confederate flag, Confederate movement, the whatever you want to uphold it. I'm not touching it. I'm not touching it. I don't even think they understand truly what it means. A lot of people they twist it up and say heritage, and I'm like, is that what we're gonna ball this up as this is my heritage?
But
That's your heritage.
Can I tell you something? Having a little experience with that community, you're not wrong. 9 out of 10 of those people couldn't tell you the most basic facts about that time in history. None.
Yeah.
They know Robert.
I know.
They know what
they tried to have conversations with me and left very, very sad that they tried. Yeah.
Shakim, that's why I always had to do all the goddamn talking, because they know they know the flag, they know Robert E. Lee, and they know we lost, and that's.
So
and
can I ask
a
a question?
Slavery. It wasn't.
But they don't even. The thing that irks me the most is they don't understand why they were given this flag as a symbol of heritage. Like, this is my thing that bothers me. Like I want to read to you something that somebody sent me on Twitter, because I think is actually really apropos to what we're talking about.
In my opinion, if you can't prove lineage to somebody who fought, you have no claims to that flag whatsoever anyway. So people that just pick it up for an ideological reason, they're fucking stupid to begin with, because that flag doesn't have any ideological reason. It was a military standard.
Yeah, but no, it became a historical reset. Okay, so like after the Civil War, the white people in the South were decimated. Like, everything that they knew was erased. Like, the power structure they had, their belief that God had sanctioned slavery, like their belief in their historical legends that came before them that built the South, even though we know who did the building. Those things, all of it was gone. So when their leaders knew that they had a defeated people. They had a people who were down, and they needed to rebuild them. And that's what they started to do. So that's when a lot of these statues of Robert E. Lee and other Confederate generals started to pop up, because they were trying to tell them, like, yeah, you lost, but we put up a valiant fight. Like we weren't fighting over slaves. We were fighting for states' rights. Like they tried to change and reframe the entire narrative so that they could rebuild the people of the South, because they needed them to be industrious. They needed them to get back into agriculture. They needed them to be responsible and economic. They needed them to pick up after slavery and become something. You know what I'm saying? So they had to rebuild them. So they basically rebuilt their history. And this is where you get like the lily white Republicans and the kind of the Blair, where the blur that you see between Confederates and Republicans, and why that symbol is on the right so much. And someone wrote this to me on Twitter, and it was in reference to the lily white Republicans. It says, he wrote, how many times does lily white need to be explained as a natural, listen, as a natural response after the end of slavery? Whites in the South went from owning Black slaves to seeing well-organized Blacks getting political power. They would have feared that they were about to become slaves. That's what the flag was about. The flag was about giving them a domineering spirit that they weren't going to fall into the trap that they just had Black people in. And if you look across the South, we were building Black Wall Streets. We were starting to organize. We were getting ourselves together, and they couldn't pick themselves up. So they were looking at us like, if they keep building and growing, then they're going to do to us what we did to them. And then they gave them that flag. They rewrote their history. They started redefining their culture because they wanted the white people in the South to stand up again with straight backs again and feel like they hadn't been defeated and they weren't, you know, losers in their own country, that they were actually a part of shit and that their history will be recorded. So like when you look at why the flag is now a part of the right, it comes from that need to rebuild what the South actually stands for, to reconfigure the old, what we know as to be historical fact with more heritage-based, if I could use it that way, flashbacks that they can use to have pride in, to have joy in, to have reverence in. And that helped them to rebuild themselves and to rebuild the South. And that's what it was all about initially. It was about taking a people who were completely dissipated after the Civil War and trying to rebuild them up into a working asset of the American population.
All right, so let me, Tyler, I want you to talk on that, because I've heard a little different perspective from you in the past about what that meant. Is there anything that you don't agree with her on with that?
No, she pretty much nailed it. I think she took it a little bit deeper than I normally do, but as far as the flag goes, and I don't relate it to the Republican Party at all. Because if you talk to your average Joe Republican north of the Mason-Dixon line, the Confederate flag isn't going to have anything to do. Like that's not going to register with them. For Southerners after the war, you got to remember when the war ended, Northern soldiers went back home. Their wives were still there. Their houses were still there. Their towns were intact. It was like they never left. Southerners went home. Like I had 7 ancestors who fought. You got to remember back then, these people were marching from here to Virginia and then marching back. They came home. Charleston's leveled. Their wives are pregnant with like Union soldiers' kids because they'd been raped. Like there was no food. If you lived on a plantation, your plantation was probably burned. Your slaves were gone. Like you were done. If you were done, you were like King Street Sunday morning. Like that was the South. And so yeah, I think that taking whatever sense of pride they could squeeze out of that defeat is what kept the South going. Like the reason we didn't drag our chins in the dirt for 60 years. You got to remember, it took the state of Georgia until like 1972 to economically recover from the Civil War, like to reach its economic, to become equal to what it was before the war. It took Georgia till like 1972. The South was no joke after the war. So yeah, they were a conquered people. Like you look at that throughout history, like conquered people don't normally fare too well. And if in a country like the United States, you can't have, a third of its landmass spilling down to the dumps like they're not part of the system. So you do what you have to do to build that spirit back up and bring them back into the fold. And that's what happened with the Confederate flag. And that's why it became a symbol of regional pride. And that's why Southerners always tell people, like, when Northerners and Westerners come to South Carolina raising hell about the flag, we're like, look, you don't have to like it. It's not your history. We don't expect you to understand it. But, and we don't even, like, me, knowing what I know now, looking back at it, I can see what Sonny is saying. Like, that, because that sense of pride and, recovery is still there, associated with the flag. Like, in the secessionist party, the people that still go out there to the Battery today, they still, it's like a veil, what Sonny was talking about, that Southerners still wear every time they associate with that flag.
What you
So
think? What's
is
your
it
take?
like? Is it? No, I got a question.
Okay.
So, cause like say you get into the Dixiecrats and shit like that, they start, they wear the flag, they wear the battle flag, and
Mhm.
everything else. But so from what I'm getting from Sonny and what I'm getting from, is it James?
Yeah, or Tyler,
Okay.
whatever you prefer, it don't matter.
Oh, okay. I want to call you what you go by. So basically, it's like an emotional. Is it like a symbolism of emotion, or a symbolism of um
It's
let's
like a
do better? Like is it
it's like
like
a it's
because
like a
from what I'm
fraternity
hearing,
on crack. It's like a fraternity on crack. It's
oh,
it's this
okay,
huge regional sense of like clubhood, brotherhood, like community. Like the film Shakim, they talk about Charleston having that sense of community.
Right.
It's that feeling on like a southeastern regional level. Like people from Virginia and people from Texas have nothing to do with each other, but if they see each other wearing that flag, it's like this connection. Oh, we're Southern. You like grits and sweet tea. Like that's what it means for
okay.
most of them.
That's like I said, because there's a lot of people. I looked into the Confederate history, but I didn't go in depth. I was just like, I'm good. So I'm the type of
Yeah.
person where if I don't know nothing, I don't mind listening. I don't mind asking questions so I can learn and I can go from there with my next conversation. So
Well, see, that's
like
why I
I
was
said,
so confused in 2015 when the flag became the ire of the debate after the shooting. First of all, I thought that was disrespectful to the victims of the shooting to automatically start talking about a flag. But when I had grown up, I know in Florence and in my schools, there's a brand called Dixie Outfitters that sells Confederate flag. It's clothing that might have a little flag on the collar or something like that. Not very subtle, but it was very popular. And black and white kids wore it to school when I was growing up. So it wasn't Dixie Outfitters was just a brand. It wasn't uncommon to see a black kid with a Confederate flag Dixie Outfitters logo on his pocket on his shirt. It was everybody wore it. So that's why I was so taken aback. And it was really introduced to me as something seen as like hatred and racism for the first time in 2015. And I think that's why a lot of people got so defensive about it, because it had never really been presented to us that way. And then all of a sudden the whole country hated us and we're like, what the hell? But I mean, I guess that's a reaction people have for anything.
When,
All right.
when,
So do you?
when
Okay.
Bree Newsom climbed up that flagpole and pulled that Confederate flag down, I ain't complaining about that one either.
So question: do you think the Confederate monuments should be pulled down? I know. Tyler
No,
feels okay.
no,
You said no to
no,
Sonny. You said no.
no, 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 no. A country that denies its history is doomed to repeat it. We were on the slavery end of that fucking history. Let's not repeat that. Let's not go back and unlearn fucking lessons. That's stupidity. If it's one thing you want to do with these statues is not tear them down, but it is given accurate history of why they were put up. That to me is like the most important part. So if you like think about again the Robert E. Lee statue in Richmond, Virginia, it's right in the city, in the middle of the city. Do you know why they put it there? They put it there because we built the Black Wall Street. We built the Black Wall Street right in front of that motherfucker. And so they put it there to make us feel some kind of way. And we were like, yeah, no, we're going to build all around this bitch. So when you go and you look around the Robert E. Lee statue, it look a lot like us. Not the people that was intended to look at that statue with, you know what I'm saying? And I think that that's important to leave there and to make us remember we built in the face of this shit. We didn't lose the white supremacy. They own this motherfucker and we built in the middle of it. And that's what we need to start teaching instead of looking at it like it was an all around loss for them. This is all they got. From that entire period, all they have is this one shitty statue. Like, we should look at that and be happy about that. We should look at that and take that as a sense of joy, because all around it looks like us. And if we can get back to a place where we own all of that and we operate all of that like we used to do back in the day, I think that that speaks way more volume than tearing down statues and forgetting history. We cannot forget our history. The good, the bad, all of it makes us who we are. The bruises ensure we don't have to go through the same shit over and over again if we learn the lessons. But when they start taking it down, when they start denying history, when they don't teach history in its full metric and range, that's when we start repeating dumb shit that we've already done before and we found to be unproductive. So we have to be stewards of our history. We need to be protectors of our legacy. And yes, even our enslavement is our legacy. You know what I'm saying? And we have to be the guardians of that. We have to be the distributors of that information. And we're not going to be able to continue to do that if every symbolic gesture that is put up around this country signifying that moment of time is torn down and removed. We need to be the portrayers of history. We need to be the spreaders of history, not the destruction of it.
All right, James, you got a little bit of feedback on your mic. Shaka, so why don't you think the monument should be taken down?
I'm big on history and I'm big on culture. Like I said, that's how I was raised as far as in my household. Yeah, I was raised in my household. History and culture is the two, main pillars that you need as far as, not returning back to what you lost or what you went through and actually moving forward. And then the person that, like I said, you don't want to be as black, like I said, as African Americans, Black Americans, whatever you go by, a lot of our history was destroyed. So like I said, as far as just having a common last name, we don't really know our last name. We write somebody else's last name. And that's something that white folks will never understand is, yeah, we embraced our last name, but every time we write our last name on a check or a signature, that's not our last name. So I believe it's barbaric to actually destroy history or try to delete anybody's history. Grow from it, learn from it. Don't repeat the same mistakes that you made. You got a blueprint. So it's basically a blueprint to move forward.
All right, so let me ask you a question. If there was a statue of Adolf Hitler in Israel, do you think they'd tear that down?
Yeah, they would.
Why would
they
it
would.
Why would it be in Israel?
I'm just asking the question, I just threw that out there,
He never went to Israel, dumb it.
But like, you can say that, except all the mosques are still standing in Israel. And one of the things that makes Israel what it is the combination of the major religions of Christianity, Muslim, and Judaism all have a place and a home in that one city, and none of the history is forgotten. That's literally what makes Israel so special, that it is literally the crossroads of the three major religions of the world, and they are all present. All of their history is represented. And if you go outside, the histories overlap in different ways depending on which religion you practice. But that's what makes Israel so special, that all of them are able to coincide, and no one denies the history of the mosque, and no one denies the history of the church. And no one, denies the history of the temple. Everybody understands that they are there for specific reasons. They have historical context as to why Israel is the way that it is. And that history is guarded, protected, and respected by everybody that lives in Israel. And that is a model we can go by.
Right. So this is my thing. This is my big gripe or complaint about Confederate monuments. I know it's a waste of energy. In my opinion, I wouldn't make that first on my priority list because at the end of the day, if you take down a statue, that in no way, shape, or form brings any sort of movement, in my opinion, on the needle as far as liberation. I think it kind of there's other ways that are more urgent right now. However, in my opinion, okay, just look in Columbia. You got a statue of Ben Tillman. Ben Tillman was one of the most racist, pro-lynching white men in history.
Yes, he was.
He was brutal. I
You know
could
about Hamburg, right?
huh?
Kim? You know about Hamburg, right?
Hamburg, what about him?
That was the black town that he diverted the Savannah River to flood. You need to look
Okay.
that up. You need to look
Okay.
that up.
Okay. All right. So Ben Tillman is one of the most crucial slave masters. I mean, he was governor of South Carolina for a little while. And to have, I could only imagine being a slave that was tortured by this individual, that was maimed and beat, and a woman that was raped and all of that. And now there's a statue erected of him. In my mind, in my body, in my soul, my ancestors would not want that statue up there. And in my mind, I think it should be gone. However, like I said, in all honesty, I mean, and if you take down the statue, the history still exists because you can read about them in a book. You got Wikipedia, you got all kind of other stuff. So if I tore down the statue,
well, when will you? And that's the issue. Like I didn't. The first time I talked to my daughter about Robert E. Lee is when we passed the statue. Yeah. When will you have that conversation with them? When will you bring that up with your kids? When will you have that discussion with a car full of your cousins just riding down the street? The statue is what makes you have the discussion. So, like, if you're walking down the park and you see it and you don't know who it is, and you read the thing and you say, yo, that's a fucked up motherfucker right there. Like, then I know I can go home and I can research this person because I don't know this history. And like, and it puts you on a spark to say like, well, maybe this is why the people in this city feel the way that they feel. And maybe their feeling is different from mine coming from Richmond. And I'm looking at the Robert E. Lee statue and I feel one way. They're looking at this statue in their city and they feel a different way. So even though we both are looking at these statues like, you know what I'm saying? They're for different reasons, different statues, different people. And they're reflective of the city that they're placed in. You know what I'm saying? And like, again, we can put up our own statues. We can put up our own history. Like, I'm not against that at all. I'm all for that. But the worst villains in history, like you don't want to forget they were villains and forget what they did and why they did it. Again, to protect it from ever happening again. So I am not ever one to remove any sort of history. You're not supposed to be looking at history with your feelings. You're supposed to be looking at history with an eye towards the future and understanding that you don't want to walk that path again. And I would I would rather live in that reality than lie to myself because it doesn't make me feel good. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
They let them all.
And you got to remember, having statues and stuff of unpopular people isn't just an American thing. Oliver Cromwell, the guy who overthrew the monarchy in England and turned England into a republic for a short period of time. He's like the most hated person in English history. They dug him up and put him on trial and beheaded him after he died. He has a statue in Parliament. Like, it's Maximilien Robespierre, who was in charge of the French Revolution, the Terror. He's like the most reviled person in French history. There's a train station named after him. But so it's not just an American thing like this, keeping people around that weren't popular. It's history's kept alive pretty much everywhere.
And it should be. And it really
We
should.
have a statue of Lenin in Washington State.
We
Seattle has
have
a statue of Lenin. So I mean, it's not people have statues of people they hate, and they have them for certain reasons. And I think I
and
would rather
people want to repeat, and the easiest way they can repeat is by erasing.
not
So
knowing
if
you did
you
it in the first
erase
place.
it and you make it like it never happened, then when they do it, it's like it's the first time. So if you know the history and you see it, then you can be like, oh, hell no, let's not do this.
And
And
you got to remember, the only person that's benefiting from deleting Confederate history is the Democratic Party, because that's their history.
yeah,
They're the ones that have a reason to want to delete it so bad, because it's their fucking
so
history.
bad. And it's like, why, as conservatives or Republicans, would you aid them in that? Like, I don't want to aid you in destroying your history. This
Lying
is
to people more than you
are. Like, live with it, accept it, own up to it, and you know what I'm saying? If you think that you have progressively changed past what you look at when you see that Confederate flag,
Why are you so scared of
it? Then it should not bother you. You should be able to defend why you think your ideology has changed. But I think for a lot of them, they know their ideology hasn't changed. And that's why the history scares them so much. And seeing the statue scares them so much because
and they
are not
use black people to do it.
history as they would pretend they are.
Okay.
Like I do with the party.
I'm about to end this live in about 15 minutes. So last question, last topic, because a lot of people have been chiming in about that. Let's talk about the violence that has been in some of these protests. How has the violence affected the narrative? I had some people on this feed here saying that because this was like a side discussion we was talking earlier. Some were saying that, the violence is just a result of the inability of people to listen through us down the line. Then you have somebody else basically saying here that, the violence is taking away from the message. So which one is it? Is the violence, sending a message saying that, hey, we're finally sick and tired of the peaceful protest being done away with? Or is it actually taken away? So I'll start with Shaka first. So which one is it? Is the violence adding to it, or putting some muscle behind the message, or is it taking away?
Okay, so you got 37-year-old Shaka. I'm 37.
I know where you're going.
37-year-old Shaka is saying, yeah, let's focus on bringing justice. Let's put pressure on the people. Like I said, I do when I was getting down, 20-year-old Shaka was getting down with what you see on TV and what you see up and down your timeline. But that 20-year-old Shaka was going to court and going to City Hall Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's the difference. So if you're gonna F up your city or whatever you're gonna do, make sure that you're going to these these meetings, these council, these City Hall council meetings. Make sure that you're stalking your local politicians and make them do something. Don't just tear up the city and then go home and use the new PlayStation that you got. So I have 20-year-old Shaka saying, yeah, go tear it up. And then you have 37-year-olds saying, nah, we need to focus on reaching out to the family, making sure that they're good. This is bipartisanship, reaching over the aisle, making sure that is there anything we can do as we supposed to have black conservative leadership that's supposed to be reaching out to that family and seeing what we can do as far as in that city. But they'd rather call us monkeys and chimpanzees and shit, and say, look at those black folks. They'd rather do that than reach out and get a hold of that family and say, what can we do? You see that Al Sharpton didn't link up with the family. You see that the Martins didn't link up with the family. Why can't the Republicans or black conservatives? Because I think they black Republicans. I don't think they black conservatives. I'm just gonna go on record by saying that they black Republicans. They're not black conservatives. So when are the black Republicans going to reach out to that family? Those are things, like I said. I respect. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna leave the floor. One thing that Trump is not doing is he's not shying away from mentioning George's name. If you watched the speech earlier, he said we're gonna bring justice to the family. Like, he's been strong on that, and I support that part, because I wish, as a black man, I didn't vote for Obama. I've never been a Democrat or a Republican, but as a black man, I wish Obama would have stood up and said the things that we see from Trump. And you can dislike Trump or you can like him, but he's always said what happened to George is wrong, and we need justice for him and his family. That's I'm done with the floor.
Okay. All right. So, Sonny, let's talk about. You just heard Shaka, his beautiful understanding. What is your take on it? Is the violence getting our message heard, or is it taken away?
Shaka, 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old Sonny. You know what we would have been doing, right?
I already know.
You know what we would have been doing, right? And I look at these kids and I'm like, how can I hold them to an account that I know at 16, 17, 18, I'd have been right there. Like, the thing that allows me to look at it and be like, I wish I wasn't seeing the looting. I wish I wasn't seeing the rioting. I wish I wasn't seeing the destruction, is my age and my experience. And now I have something to live for and something to fight for in my family and my daughter. But if you're looking at these 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, what the hell do they have to live for? What have you given them to look forward to hope for anything? So how can we look at them and say no? And we can, trust me, I understand, being an adult, being a grown up in the room. I'm Sunny. I get it, but I'm not dumb. I can remember 16-year-old me. I can remember 17-year-old me. And that 17-year-old me, I wasn't mad at the system. I wasn't mad at Republicans and Democrats. I wasn't mad at Antifa or the KKK. I wasn't mad at any of them. I was just mad that life sucked. And I didn't see a way to get out. I didn't see a way to make it better. I didn't see a way to forgive the people that had grieved me. I did not see hope. And that's what I look at. I look at it like it is our generation to understand what we are missing. And if we are missing hope, and we are missing choice, and we are missing a chance, then let's be the generation that gives that to the next generation. So they don't have to feel like we're feeling 10 years from now. They don't have to go through this 10 years from now and relive this all over again. And I don't really care what it makes me look like or sound like, but I honestly can't look at these kids and be like, don't stop, no, because I know them. I know what they're feeling, and they didn't choose any of this. They didn't ask for any of this. They didn't want any of this. And this is the situation that we handed to them as grown-ass fucking adults. Let us take our responsibility in that. We gave them this shit. And now we're looking at them, expecting them to be the adults in the room. And it's rude on us. It's egotistical on us to think that we can do that and not accept our responsibility in this. So instead of looking at them, and even I can say, I think it's wrong. I'm an adult. I told you know what I believe in, and I think it's wrong. But I failed them. Yep. I didn't get their voice out. I didn't make people listen to them. I didn't make people hear them. And so they're dead ass determined to do it for themselves. And since I failed, how can I blame them? And that's how I feel on it. You know, I wish we didn't get here. I wish I had won. I wish we had stopped it. I wish conservatives had listened. I wish. But all my wishes mean shit. It didn't happen. So now I can't look at them and bring them wishes and dreams and rainbows and unicorns and think it's going to do anything real for them. I'm going to be honest about that. It won't. So I can just hope that we leave you something better than what was left to us. And that's the only thing I can wish.
Right. So in my mind, right, this is how I kind of look at it. Of course, looting is bad because I could have a business, somebody breaks in my business, and I have to suffer the consequences. So it's really an action it's really an indiscriminate action where it can negatively impact anyone. So I wouldn't want it. I don't advocate it because, like I said, it has no aim or purpose. Nevertheless, what you are seeing is an act that is getting the attention of people, right? See, protesting is only supposed to be a method that's utilized to get the attention of people. So naturally what happens is what we're seeing is we've reached out in so many different ways trying to get the attention of people who historically and systemically have ignored and been desensitized by acts of injustice. So now, you got your hand up, Sonny. You wanted to
I am admitting to the words that you were saying. I'm putting this is me.
You just got it's like you in church. You got the Holy Ghost.
No, okay. I'm admitting. I'm openly admitting that I fit under what you just described.
Right.
That's me.
Right. So what is happening is that we have literally taken a beating and a bashing when we've protested peacefully. Martin Luther King Jr., everybody is seeming to quote him right now, and they do it so eloquently, and they reference him, and they try to use him as a means of saying, this is the right way, but he was murdered. They're forgetting about that part. They're saying this is the right way. This is the route that we should take. MLK, they murdered him. So now when you look at it circumspectively, how can we say that that's the right way when it still ended in murder? They called him troublemaker. They called him all type of negative names.
Wait a minute. Who did that?
White America. And blacks too. A lot of blacks too.
Not all of white America.
Right. Not all.
But like the reason that I bring that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take no time, but the reason that I bring that up is because it's critical as to where we are now. Because that civil rights era is dead. It died. Black Lives Matter massacred it. And I don't care what you have to say about Black Lives Matter. It officially killed the civil rights era. And that is gone. No black people on the ground are quoting King anymore. They're not quoting King anymore. So all of the upper echelons that held the power before, they have lost their power. They don't control this generation. They don't speak for this generation. They have no moral, fortitude over this generation. This generation does not look at them as respectable leaders or respectable elders. If real leaders and elders don't step in, Antifa will, the socialists will, the radicals will, the anarchists will. somebody is going to lead the next ideological movement in the Black community. And if it's not you, Shaka, if it's not you, Shakim, if it's not me, if it's not Maj, if it's not Lawrence, if it's not one of us, then we're going to be, this country is gone. And it's going to be no saving it. It's not going to be any bringing it back from the brink. If we don't offer a renaissance now, we're going to get a revolution, and it's going to cost us a republic. It's going to cost us our constitution. It's going to cost us everything that we hold dear, and we will not be able to get it back.
Right. So
I tell the white community all the time.
Right.
Your racism or your lack of understanding is going to bring socialism, or we might even get communism, depending on which way the dice is rolled.
Right. Let me ask you, a brother just asked me, brother Thomas. He said, "Are you a hotep?" So I'm kind of
adjacent. I'm a
right.
adjacent.
So yeah, I want to kind of give an understanding of hotep. Right. Hotep is an ancient Kemetic or African word that means peace. Peace has always been something that has resonated in the soul of Black folks throughout the annals of history. We've always been a people who have been tranquil. We're highly spiritual. Like I said a while back, like even in situations where we've been invaded, we've always loved and embraced those who turned around and stabbed us in the back. You know, when you look at colonialism, a lot of us took them in and aided and helped them. And you want to fast forward into modern history, look at Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof walked into a church with 9 Black people with the intention of killing them. What did they do to Dylan Roof? They didn't kill him. They prayed with him. They came and they embraced him, and they had service with him. Even though a lot of them afterwards in their accounts, they said, you know what? He looked kind of strange. But their faith in God allowed them to say, you know what? Let's open up the doors instead of outcasting him. Let's bring him in. So when you say, are you a hotep? Hotep means peace. Shalom means peace. Islam means peace. So if you say if I'm a hotep, that's like asking someone who practices Islam, is he a Muslim? You know, one who submits. You know, all of these words have meanings, and I think what happens is by us not understanding our true history, we sometimes add a derogatory meaning to a righteous word. You'll never hear the word Islam be designated as something evil in the Muslim faith. You will never hear the word shalom being designated as having a negative connotation in the Hebraic language, because they know these words and they know what they mean and they understand their culture and the history behind it. But you got the Negro in America, like Elijah Muhammad calls him. You got the Negro, the so-called Negro in America. He hears words like hotep, and instead of embracing it and saying, you know what, it's no spookism or nothing funny behind it, it's just a word that means peace, and let's just leave it like how it is. So, you know, I like Sonny was talking about, there's a renaissance that's on the horizon, and I think we need to really embrace it. It's an opportunity for us to excel. It's an opportunity for us to grow. It's an opportunity for us to, you know, really become expressive as a people and understand, you know, where our future lies. The brother said, last question. He says, okay, last question. Are you of the Islamic faith? No, I'm actually a practitioner of the ancient African spiritual tradition. I am a traditionalist. I embrace all type of, see me, I believe that all types of religions have some of the most beautiful things in them. When you look at the Muslims, they have wonderful rituals. They have wonderful things that we can learn from. You know, offering salat 5 times a day. You know, learning how to love and treat your brother. You look at Christianity. The Bible has some of the most beautiful verses that we can repeat and listen to. It has some gospel music is one of the most powerful forms of spiritual upliftment. I mean, you listen to gospel music, it'll turn a bad day into a good day. See, when we begin to embrace the positive side of different cultural and religious practices, you see a world that opens up and it allows you to, embrace people versus killing people. So I have been a Muslim. I've studied Islam for a long time. I was in the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam actually made me to be very disciplined, because Elijah Muhammad said, the restricted laws of Islam. He said no drinking, no smoking, no cursing, no lying. It gave us guidelines and rules by which we should follow in order to become model people. So different type of religions have such wonderful, wonderful, wonderful cultural meanings that we should embrace. Hold on. Okay, hold on. One more. Somebody asked me. Hold on. Do you feel Amy Cooper should be charged with her call to police? Christian Cooper could be George Floyd right now. Let me tell you all this. 2018, we were having a Stop the Violence rally, and a lot of this story just went super viral. A lady called the police on us. We called her gas station Gail. We did a Stop the Violence rally in our neighborhood. We walked up the road with the children with the sign saying, "Stop the violence, put the guns down, stop the violence, put the guns down." We walked all the way up the street. Now everybody was like, what about black on black crime? What about black on black crime? So now, let's do something about black on black crime. We get to the store, it's like 15 of us, a lot of little kids running around. So the lady drives up hysterical. What are y'all doing? Screaming, this and that. I'm kind of confused. I started videotaping her. I'm like, yo, man, what's going on? We were still kind of confused. I ended up leaving and we left. So all of a sudden, a reporter calls me and he said, "Hey, man, I retrieved the 911 call from the lady at the gas station." I listened to the 911 call. She tried to get us killed. She said we were rioting, we were looting, the kids were taking the gas pump out of people's hand and smashing it. And I could not believe what the lady said on the 911 tape. Do I think she should have been arrested? Yes. Because, the way how she made it appear, we had little kids with us. I could have got shot. We could have got shot. So, yes, I feel that, there needs to be some sort of, now they do have a statute that they can charge you with for abusing 911, because I had a long talk with the police chief at the time that happened. He said that the definition of abuse of 911 is like somebody calling 911 saying, "Oh yeah, my husband hit me." They came there and they didn't answer the door. Then they call him back, playing games with him, and they get tired of you playing games. So they say, "You know what, we're going to lock you up because you done called 911 all night. And every time we come out here, something dumb happening." So, I don't know. That's a conversation that we definitely need to have. But as far as back to the subject at hand, because I know we're kind of moving fast and everybody's like getting tired. But
no, I want to answer.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, I want to answer. So, like, when you look at you and your case, cool. Let's press charges. Let's get ready to actually stand up for this because what was done. Mm-hmm. When you look at this case, he accepted her apology. Right. Be a human being. If that man accepted it, then you accept it and move it down on. Now, in your case, if you want to stand up to it because you understand that not only was it your safety and your dominion that was important, it was also the people that were under your care. You're looking at that differently because you're looking at that as a leader. You're looking at that as someone with responsibility for the people that are under you. So in your situation, you're looking at it differently, and you should, because you are a steward responsible for those people that are marching with you. And if you're the leader of that group, you need to make sure they're protected. And if this action guarantees that people like that don't do it again, it needs to happen. But with the two Coopers up in New York, he accepted her apology. And they're in the same circles. And they have the same ideology. And they have the same way of thinking about things. And they have I'm not fighting your fucking battle for you if you ain't gonna fight it for yourself. If you don't think it's worthy of you saying that this shit is wrong, if you can't look at your fellow brothers and how they might be affected by this exact same situation because they don't have the fucking degree that you have, then I'm not going to sit and defend you and put my shit on the line for you to go back and just be kissing this lady's ass the whole time. So if it comes to you being in a position of leadership where you have people under you that could fall victim to this, and you have to make sure as your first duty that those people are protected, I'll stand by you every day of the week. But if you're going to turn around and say, you know what? White people aren't that bad. And maybe it was just a bad day for her. And maybe we should just not throw ourselves into a, like, if you're going to do that, don't fucking ask me to stand up for you. Don't ask me to speak out for you. I have to save my outrage for the people that actually deserve it. So I would rather give my outrage to George Floyd than give it to you. And I think that that's how we have to carry ourselves when we look at the fact that we say all skin folk and kinfolk. I think that this is a kind of example that sets that standard. If you're going to walk around and apologize, and forgive and not hold accountable and like hold like pity or guilt over someone that wronged you, that's not something I can get behind. That's not something I can agree with. And I'm not going to use my time, my effort, my energy, or my platform to defend you if you won't fucking defend yourself. I'll defend the people that would defend themselves. If you choose to apologize, I'm not defending you in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
All right, Shaka, you want to give your take, man? We'll close it on out.
All I'm gonna say,
I'll let James answer that too. Go ahead.
All I'm gonna say about that is, I want my viewers to hear all of us, like all four of us, but I want them to hear this part. A lot of my, white conservative, white Republican viewers, they'll tell you that racism doesn't exist, or we're making up things, or so this is where we debunk that narrative right now. So a white lady or these calls that we've been seeing, they say, hey, this person is doing this, they're black. They make sure that they emphasis on they're black. Why would they put emphasis on what color we are if the law enforcement look at the black person, the white person the same? Supposedly, that's the narrative that we get sold, to shut up, don't say nothing. You're race baiting. It wouldn't matter if a person, they put emphasis on black and African American male, and they're doing this, and I'm scared. And they know that that's a weapon that they have, but they won't never admit to that weapon. And I just want to know, like, we're too old to be lying to each other.
No, I'll pose that question to all you black women that are walking with the white feminists. When your black man on the chopping block, are you still standing with the white feminists? And I think that that's where we see a lot of the problems and a lot of the separation. And it's not like I'm not even in the mood to choose between your gender or your race. Like, I think that that's bullshit. But if you're standing beside white feminists that say that, for example, throw this out, that black men are the white people of black people, if that's the white feminist you're standing beside, then as a black woman, you need to really evaluate your black power stance, because you're not standing beside black men. And if you would rather choose to stand beside white feminists over black men, then make yourself a feminist and not a black activist, because that's where your loyalties actually lie. So at least be honest about where your loyalties lie.
All right. So, hey, Tyler, let me ask you a question. So, do that situation that we saw with George, whatever that guy's name, in the park, do you think, and I know, and I'm glad you always are never afraid to express yourself. Do you think, looking at that issue, can you call racism? Is there any way you can look at that situation and call racism, or it's just two assholes in the park?
The two Coopers?
Yes.
Oh, there's definitely implied racism in that case. Definitely. Absolutely. And I see it all the time. I mean, I don't, and it's so passive, and I didn't really think about it until Shaka said what he just said, but it I like what you said because I realized something for the first time. I see it in conversations all the time, and excuse me, something will have happened, or you'll be telling a story about an individual, and the person will say,
Hey,
were
beautiful.
they white or black? And to try to paint that image in their head, especially if you're telling, I notice a lot, a story that seems like it's going down the line where the character that you're describing did something bad or salacious. It's like, ooh, was it a black person or a white person? So yeah, I definitely think that there's what she said on the phone. It's like what he said. There'd be no reason to say that if you were under the assumption that the officer was going to approach it neutrally, no matter what anybody looked like. But their race wouldn't matter. She didn't say, "And I'm a white woman." It was, "And he's a black man." So it's yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I do think that I don't to say that she should be charged for it because of the conversation that happened before that. Because there was a lot more to that story than just what was posed in the question. As far as what he said to her before the video started, I do think the story is it's it being two assholes in the park. But as far as the phone call goes, yeah, there was definitely some racism involved in that.
So last thing, and we were talking, me and Tyler, we were talking about this the other day. Tyler says he is sick and tired of the media. The media does not, when a white person gets killed by the police, the media is silent. Tyler said they're silent. So he says, the media is playing a lot of, stirring a lot of emotions. And he's saying, listen, I'll let you explain. I ain't gonna put words in your mouth. I'll let you explain it. The conversation
Well, I mean, I just so what really brought that narrative home for me was what I was talking about with Elvin the other day, and it was shortly after the Mike Brown shooting was that Australian exchange student in Oklahoma. He was out for a jog, and these three black teenagers were playing Grand Theft Auto. Quit, decided they wanted to go driving. Saw the guy jogging, shot him, killed him. When they arrested these three black kids, they said that they did it because they wanted to know what it felt like to kill somebody. That literally happened within like a month of the Mike Brown shooting. You can look it up; it's on there. And it was somebody who had found the story that lived in Oklahoma that shared it on a site that like made its way to me through social media. But nobody, if you didn't come across this story, you would have never heard about it. You would have never known that person's name. Same thing with the guy with the sword the other day that at the protest, like that guy could have died. You'd never know his name. The little black girl that died in the drive-by in Chicago, a little 9-year-old girl, nobody knows her name. The media decides which stories they want to blow up and inflame. And I think, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm really glad that the George Floyd thing is a national story, but I don't think every death of every citizen, regardless of their race, needs to be a national story, in my opinion. And it just I think the media inflames it, and they can. That's what's so dangerous about it, because they can, depending on who's in charge of these organizations, they can inflame it the other way. It's like we said the other night. Within 2 or 3 years, they can have it the whole narrative switched around. Suddenly, white people are the victims, and black people are killing us by the dozens. It just depends on what they want to report. They could pick the deaths that they want to show and the ones that they don't. But in their reporting now, I do think it's very heavy-handed in one direction, and I think that's for a reason.
But let me tell you, though, I have this is the part that pisses me off about that reasoning, right? That argument. On my show, I did a whole show about white people and their interactions with the police. How many white people were being killed by police? And I asked my audience, I was like, how many of you have ever heard of any of these stories? Nobody called in, and nobody was like, we've heard about this and we've gone through this. And the point is, when you say that it's the media, it's not just the media, because when they say the media, they think of MSNBC and CNN. No, this is your Fox News. Your Fox News is not going to show you the image of white cops suffocating a white man. They are not going to show you that news. They could, but they won't, because their narrative is Blue Lives Matter. Their narrative is back the blue. So they're not going to show you anything that would make you question the blue. But I ask white America, white conservatives, white Republicans, you constantly tell us that like more white people are killed by the cops than black people, right? How many of those white deaths have you questioned? You don't even fucking question them. They can tell you that they shot a white guy. You don't even want to see the video. You don't even want to know what happened. You're not going to march for him. You're not going to protest for him. You're not going to stand up for him. You're not going to defend him. You're automatically going to take the side of the state. And you're going to say that the state must have been justified in killing them. The state must have had their reason. They must have done something. And you don't even question, but you get mad at us because we ask questions, because we don't think the shit is right. And I'm asking, like, if all of us are Americans, if all of us are citizens, and if the state is killing us, should not we all be asking questions? It doesn't matter who dies is black or white or Hispanic or Jewish or what the fuck ever. If the state is killing us, shouldn't we all have questions? But a lot of white America doesn't want to question the state. At least not when it comes to the death of other white Americans. And then when we come up into a situation like this, you want to question us like, well, if it was a white guy, would you do it? I've done it. I've done it numerous times. And I've asked white people numerous times, why don't you give a fuck that the state is killing white people and not giving you any explanation for it? And white people would tell me because we back the blue.
Yep.
But we believe in him. We trust him. And then you really start to see how many of these people who claim they are conservatives are really statists. They will take the state side in any argument, any endeavor, as long as they believe that the state is going to keep them safe. And they don't remember, if you trade your liberty for safety, you're going to lose both. And I think that that's where we are at a point with conservatives. They don't trust the deep state. They don't trust the FBI. They don't trust the DOJ, but they trust their local police department. This is how warped the thinking is. Like, they aren't all executive branches. You know what I'm saying? And they don't even question when a white person is taken out by the state. So we can look at them and like, it's racist because you don't look at the black people killed, see that it's a problem. They don't look at the white people killed and see that there's a problem. And that goes a lot more to seeing how far we've been pushed down the statist road as opposed to just the issues of race relations.
All right, so here's this question. So the brother said, and we'll wrap up with this. He said, let's not forget the fact that more cops are killed at the hand of a criminal at a far greater rate than a cop killing a citizen. Why aren't anyone addressing that, whether they are white, black, Hispanic, or Asian officers?
Is that true? Is that factual? A lot more cops die every year.
I got a better question for whoever. Why don't they show the percentage of white people killing cops, and they don't show the percentage of black people killing cops?
Repeat that. If a cop is to die, who is more likely to have shot the cop?
A white person.
You ever heard that narrative being pushed? You ever heard that narrative out there? If a black person shoots a police officer, it's news story front flash. But the majority of police officers that are killed by white people. So you don't even protect the police when it's a matter of race. Like, so get the fuck out of here with your stupid ass gotcha questions. You don't protect anybody because you are stuck in a paradigm that does not let you think outside this little ass bubble you keep in your head. If you really gave a damn about the deaths of police officers, you would be a lot more focused on white men, as white men kill a lot more police officers. But you're not. You wait for black officers that you can use. Then say pull out this whole paradigm between black and white, between left and right, between Republican and Democrat, wherever you want to go with it. When the instance is the state has the power to kill American citizens with no consequence. No American citizen gets to kill a cop with no consequence. So let's stop pretending that the two things are equal.
Not even their dog. You can't even kill their dog.
You can't even kill it, or their horse. You can't kill their dog. You can't kill their horse. You can't damage their car, for God's sake. Those things hold more possession than black life. Or any American life, for that matter.
Any life. I was going to say any life.
Okay. So, I guess one of the things that I've noticed is that, I mean, people are saying, well, what about outrage on this issue? So, I mean, we can't address everything. Like, you got to get outraged about something too. Like, God damn, I mean, you want us to be outraged about everything?
Like, you say you want
damn, you want me to be outraged about everything?
20 minutes ago, and we're still outraged. So
Yeah.
that goes to prove that the outrage will never fully stop.
Right. All right, last question. Is it wrong to say all lives matter?
Yes.
It depends. If that's your rebuttal to us discussing black lives being murdered or black oppression within the community, yeah. But I said something, and a lot of white folks hit me. A lot of black folks got pissed off. A lot of white folks got pissed off. Only problem I have with I'm gonna say this. Only problem I have with the riots and everything else was the violence against innocent folks. That's it. But otherwise, if you're using all lives matter to shut me the fuck up, hell yeah, you wrong.
I don't believe in all lives matter. I don't believe in black lives matter. I don't believe in white lives matter. I don't believe in blue lives matter. To me, there are some lives that just don't fucking matter. So if you want to shoot up a playground and say Black Lives Matter, fuck you. If you want to abuse your power as a police officer and say Blue Lives Matter, fuck you. If you want to flex some kind of white supremacy that you think you have and say all white lives matter, fuck you. Like, no. There are some people whose lives just don't fucking matter to me. And if you don't take into consideration the lives of others while you spit your fucking nonsense, your life doesn't matter to me. So if we're going to be looking at this, there will always be evil amongst us. The good must step up to meet the evil. So to me, good lives matter. Fuck the evil lives. We're coming for you.
Word.
I knew she. I was waiting for the bomb. I was like, she ain't about to leave without dropping these bombs. And there we have it.
Word. So I'm gonna end it on this, right? And that question, all lives matter, right? It's a concept that I think, at its core, it has a lot of relevancy. Just when you look at it, right? Because I know what Sonny said was just very boom, you know what I'm saying? But at the core of all lives matter, there's still a truth that we have to address, as far as black lives mattering. So you can't have all lives matter, like they say, until at a certain degree black lives matter. So it's all one and the same. So I think
no, all lives matter makes you excuse evil. Fuck that. Fuck that. I don't excuse evil. Your life doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to put aside your evil agenda because you say life matters to me. No, fuck you. I see you clearly. You don't have the best intention for my people. You don't have the best intention for white people. You don't have the best intention for police officers. I am not going to stand by you and say that your life matters when you don't give a damn about any life around you. And we need to start being honest about that. Are there some good white people? Yes. Are there good black people? Yes. Are there good cops? Yes. Are there evil black people? Yes. Are there evil white people? Yes. Are there evil cops? Yes. Let's start holding people accountable for what they put out into the world. If they put good out into the world, love them back. If they put evil out into the world, fuck them.
Somebody said ask you something. What do you want me to ask her? The brother said ask her, Shakim. Ask her what? I don't know what he said. Hold on. Please ask this last question. Ask her. Okay. Okay. He just begging me to ask you this question. Can you see it? Please ask this last question, please. Ask her, does her life matter?
The Second Amendment, bitch, come try it.
Oh, there's the answer, folks. And I appreciate all y'all for coming on. Yes. Thank y'all, man. We appreciate it. Yes, sir. Thank you, Sonny. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Shaka. Man. Hey, love y'all, man. All right,
Nice
peace
to meet you guys.
All right, peace.
Bye.